wisdom, what does he have to tell us tonight? Well, he's going to speak to us tonight through the inspiration of God about a matter of money. About a matter of money. And you say, well, what matter of money is Solomon going to speak to us about? Well, it's a matter that, believe it or not, was important then and is still important now, and it still goes on now, and that is the matter of suretyship. Suretyship. And you say, well, what on earth is that? Well, let's see what he says, and then we'll break it all down and define exactly what Solomon's talking about here. Proverbs chapter 6, we're going to begin reading with verse 1. Proverbs 6, verse 1. My son, if thou be surety for thy friend, if thou hast stricken thy hand with a stranger, thou art snared with the words of thy mouth. Thou art taken with the words of thy mouth. Do this now, my son, and deliver thyself. When thou art come into the hand of thy friend, go, humble thyself, and make sure thy friend. Give not sleep to thine eyes, nor slumber to thine eyelids. Deliver thyself as a roe from the hand of the hunter, and as a bird from the hand of the fowler. Now, as we look at this passage of Scripture about suretyship, I want you to understand that, first of all, Solomon is speaking to his son, right? Notice that he said, my son, right? He's not letting the schools educate his son on this. He's not hoping that coaches will educate his son on this. He's not hoping that friends or acquaintances will advise his son on this. No. This is a matter of such great importance that parent to child, he's going to instruct his child on this. You say, okay, so the parent is taking his parental responsibility seriously, and he's going to make sure that his son knows the danger of suretyship. Well, let's go ahead and define that then. What is this danger that Solomon is warning his son about? Well, notice in this verse of Scripture, in this passage, he talked about being snared with the words of thy mouth. In other words, you're making a pledge and a promise. You're striking hands with someone, and you're basically saying, hey, listen up. I've got a friend, and they're going to take out a loan with you, and if they can't pay it for whatever reason, I'll take it on. So you see, today we don't call that suretyship. Today we say we're going to co-sign for somebody. Right? In other words, I'm going to sign that loan paperwork, and if my friend can't pay that loan for whatever reason, maybe they get sick, maybe they lose their job, maybe they just blow their money on other things, then I'll take on that role of payer of the loan. And Solomon's saying, hey, guess what, son? Don't you do it. Guess what, son? If you find yourself in that situation, stay away from it. If you find yourself anywhere near that, get away from it. Matter of fact, notice this. As Solomon is talking to his son, he says that this is like a trap. Notice how in verse 3 he used the word, you're snared with the words of thy mouth. And then if you notice verse 5, he said, deliver thyself as a roe from the hand of the hunter, or a bird from the hand of the fowler. Listen, a hunter doesn't use a trap so that he can catch an animal and cuddle on it and love on it. That's not what the point is. A trap or a snare was meant to bring destruction and devastation to that animal. And here Solomon's saying, son, if you end up finding yourself in a situation where you're suretyship, you're making their loan sure, you've got yourself in a trap. And you've got yourself in a trap that'll bring about your financial ruin and your financial devastation. Don't do it. Notice also that as Solomon's telling his son this, he says, listen here, after you've stricken hands and given your word on it, right? He says, do this now, my son, deliver thyself. This is not something that it's beyond your control. This is not something that is beyond your power. It's not like your friend is going to ask you, hey, I need you to co-sign on this loan for me, and you have no other choice but to go, okay, I'll sign. No. You've got the power here. You don't have to be ensnared. You don't have to be in the trap. Like Nancy Reagan, just say no. Just say no. You say, well, that's easier said than done, and I understand. It is sometimes easier said than done because you notice who the subject was? Your friend. So that person who's been with you by your side through thick and thin, and they've always had your back, and they come to you saying, man, I really want you to co-sign for me on this loan, your natural inclination is going to be in your heart. It's going to tug at you, and you're going to be, well, they've always been there for me, and I sure want to be there for them this time. But Solomon here is saying, son, don't you do it. Don't you bow to that pressure. Don't do it. If in a moment of weakness, you end up telling them yes, then what you need to do is you need to deliver yourself. Go to them and humbly tell them, listen, that was a mistake. I need to be released from this. I can't do this. And in doing so, notice what he said there at the very end of that verse. He said, you'll make sure your friend. In other words, you'll save that relationship. You mean, Brother Raines, that if I'm a co-signer, that can bring the devastation not only of my finances, but also of my friendship with that person? It can. It sure can. Because you say, well, how, brother? How could that bring the end of that friendship? Let me ask you this. So for whatever reason, they don't pay that loan, and now you're out for thousands of dollars. How's that friendship going to go then? When you can't afford anything no more, and you can't buy anything anymore because your credit's tied to that now. How's it going to go if all of a sudden you co-sign for them, and instead of seeing them put money towards that loan, you see them out there buying the latest new cell phone, the latest update of cars, the brand newest sneak, right? You're seeing them buy all this stuff instead of putting it on loan. How's your friendship going to be then? Oh, how's your friendship going to be when you start giving them unsolicited financial advice because you know you're on the hook too now? And they didn't ask for it, but you feel like you need to help them, right? That relationship's going to get worse and worse and worse. And so if you find yourself in a situation where your friend's asking you, don't do it. But if in a moment of weakness you find yourself ensnared there in that trap, humbly go to them, deliver thyself. And notice he said, verse 4, don't wait, don't dilly-dally about it. Don't even give sleep to your eyelids. Go and do it now. You say, why is he giving that advice to just go do it? Don't wait, don't dilly-dally, do it quickly as possible. Because a lot of times, if it's going to be a discussion that is going to be difficult, we put it off. All right? If we know it's going to be a tough discussion or we might let somebody down, we'll put it off as long as possible. I really don't want to let them down. Maybe another day, maybe another time. And we'll put it off, and we'll put it off, and we'll put it off. Solomon's saying, don't you do it. Go to them as soon as possible. Another reason, I think a lot of times he's saying do this as quickly as possible is the longer you're ensnared in that trap, the harder it's going to be to get out. Right? It's kind of like quicksand or tar, right? The longer you're in it, the stickier it gets, the more it pulls you under. And he's saying, don't you do it. Don't you delay. As soon as possible, deliver yourself. Go to your friend. Tell him what happened. Try to get out of it. Don't be surety for your friend. And then, if you fail to heed his advice, I'm going to read one more verse, and it's in chapter 11. You fail to heed his advice here, son, because you're grown, and you don't got to listen to daddy and mama no more. Proverbs 11:15 says this, he that is surety for a stranger, and we talked about that just a minute ago, your stranger or a friend, somebody that wants you to help them on a loan, you're going to, notice this, 100% guaranteed, they shall smart for it. In other words, they're going to hurt, it's going to be painful, you're going to end up the worse for it. But, contrast, he that hateth suretyship is sure, meaning you're okay, you have no harm done to you, your finances are good, your relationships are okay, all is well. So Solomon is saying here, hey, people of 2023, if somebody comes to you and they're begging and pleading, needing your help, and they're playing on your sympathy strings, just say no. Get away from it. It's not going to come to any good for you. Get away from it. So a few words of practical advice tonight from Solomon.